the Life Before Supercars series gets to delve into what some of our drivers have done overseas. Now, for Dick Johnson, it's technically Life Before V8 Supercars, but it's certainly not the beginning of his career. Dick, thanks for chatting to us. I'd love to know a little bit more about your time NASCAR racing in America. Is it something that you remember fondly, looking back at it?
Look, it was something, let's put it this way, it was a hell of an experience to start with, you know, to get involved in something that you knew very little about. And we really didn't have, I suppose, any background in that sort of racing before. Sure, the on the road circuits was fine, but it's not really easy when you come to a situation where you've got to go to a team you've never met before, on a racetrack you've never seen before. You miss the first two practice sessions at that particular racetrack, and it was certainly a bit difficult to be able to sort of get your head around it pretty early, because you know those guys play for keeps.
How did it start, and why did you do it?
Well, Ross Palmer, as you know, who was one of my sponsors, he bought this company in the US called the Welded Tube Company of America, and obviously he had a lot of success over here with his steel mills over here with True Blue and Green Stuff and all that, to get his name known within the industry and through motorsport. And he thought that probably the best way to do that in the US was through NASCAR. And because I was the one he asked to go and sort of stick my neck on the line and get involved with all these good old boys.
So the first race was Sears Point, or in
Sears Point, yeah, up at Sonoma in up outside San Francisco.
You missed those first practice sessions. Why was that?
Oh, the plane got delayed, and then I couldn't get a connecting flight to go from LA to San Francisco, etc., etc. But as it turns out, yeah, we got there in time to jump in and have a few laps before qualifying.
The car you were driving was pretty cool. Now, I want to chat a little bit about the guy who is your crew chief, or as we call engineer here in Australia, because he was just a young bloke who was making his start, who ended up doing some pretty great things in the sport.
He certainly did. Like Ray Evanhan, who became a very well-known celebrity. Even during NASCAR, he was Jeff Gordon's chief, well, crew chief or whatever you call him, and he's the guy who won, you know, a number of championships with him. And because originally he was with a one-make series they had over there with the Chevrolets and that around the NASCAR scene, and he came and worked for us to run a team out of a little old place just south of New York. And to be quite honest, I think he did a great job. He was very experienced. He was an ex-racer himself who used to run speedway on dirt tracks and obviously on some bitumen ovals and things. So he was a guy who had real ambitions.
Ray's clearly a very clever guy. Did you try and put any sort of touring car parts or ideas or thoughts into how you guys built that NASCAR in New Jersey?
Well, not so much in the mechanical side of things, but I think after some of the issues we had, the seats in the cars might as well sit on a park bench, because they were pretty archaic looking seats that they had, and I wanted to sort of get one of our type seats in there, and they wouldn't let you because you had to have these aluminium things that were called a Butler built seat, and I actually got them to put some legs like we do in the supercars now, with the leg protectors down the side, because in one of the races there I dislocated my knee, and because most of the guys over there, if they had a decent side shunt, they'd break their femur halfway, you know, between their hip and their knee, and I thought, well, that's, you know, not something that I'd like, because the seats would end up halfway down your femur. And so I got Butler built to put these sides on the seat that went right down to the floor, and I think they've evolved an awful lot since then.
Yeah, similar to what happened to Chaz Mostert as well here in Australia.
Absolutely.
So you're famous for carrying cameras around in your car here in Australia. How did the decision come to put a camera in your car for NASCAR?
Well, as it turned out, the guys that pioneered that through Channel 7 here in Australia were over there doing some stuff for NASCAR and ironically, not only NASCAR, but even putting cameras on the Pope-mobile when the Pope was over there. So, not that that was a fast moving piece of equipment, but with the experience they had with race cars and that, and because they knew me and I used to talk during the actual races and things like that, and have a bit of a chat to the commentary people. And not only that, but out of all the cars that had to qualify for that event, I qualified 10th, which they thought was pretty good. So they stuck a camera in my car and said, "You don't mind having a chat?" I said, "Oh, I'm pretty used to that sort of stuff." So that's how it all came about. And yeah, we had a few interesting experiences with the camera.
One of which was probably being the first person to ever swear in live sport American TV.
Oh, well, mate, you just go to the top straight away there. I thought, because the good old boys thought I was pretty good.
It wasn't just the obviously the road courses that you did. You tried your hand at ovals. How were oval track racing? You went to Talladega in particular. That must have been pretty tough.
Yeah, it's a very different sort of racing. Yeah, you've got to have friends and you've got to work with people in amongst that sort of thing. And the number one thing with ovals is you've got to have a really, really good engine. And unfortunately, the engines we had were, far from being anywhere near the top guys' engines. And it's all about horsepower on those things. But Talladega, I approached that thinking, this is crazy, this stuff. I'll just work myself into it. And because they had restrictor plate engines even back then, and as we started off, the first lap I thought I'll just take this easy and I'll just go around and I'll just use half throttle sort of thing and feel comfortable. But after the first lap, I come around and I thought, well, now I'll give it a bit more. And then I found out that I was flat. So at the end of the day, you could drive around this place just flat out the whole time and not even back off. So
you went back for another run in 1990 and you raced at Darlington, which is pretty cool. So good old historic track for the good old boys, as you call them. But there was something pretty special about that weekend in Darlington in 1990.
Yeah, that was when they were filming for the movie, Days of Thunder. And it was quite ironic because this check turned up in the mail for a very mere pittance, really. It was $1,000 or something. At the end of the day, we sort of ended up saying, what was this for? And we couldn't ever work it out. But then they said that you had a bit of a cameo role in the movie. So yeah, that's where it came from.
Dick, I might just take you back to that weekend at Darlington. What was it like having the camera crews around a NASCAR race? Was it intrusive at all?
Well, no, not really, because they had experienced guys driving the camera cars and things like that, and they were actually being part of the race, and it didn't interfere with the race one little bit. They were actually competing and were sort of right in the mix of things.
How clever is that? So were it just the camera crews there, or did they bring all the actors and everyone in for that same weekend? One
of the big thrills for Jilly was the fact that when we were at Watkins Glen, she actually met that short-ass Tom Cruise, so she thought that was pretty neat. Like he could fit under my arm, he's so little.
You make a good race car driver.
Yeah, if he could see over the steering wheel.
So did they send you the check every year, or was it just a one-off royalty of just one check?
No, just a one-off, mate. Either that or if they got directed somewhere else, I don't know.
So did you ever, when kids like Jet grow up, did you ever get Days of Thunder out and go, oh, check this out, Granddad's in Days of Thunder?
No, I think YouTube's done me a favour there. A lot of people comment on some of the footage on YouTube for those sort of things. It's been around for quite a number of years, and it still gets a bit of a laugh.
There was an interview with Ray Ebenham on the Supercars website a few years ago about how he thought that you could have had some more results and it would have gone better if you just had more time together. Do you feel the same way?
Well, look, I was still trying to run a series over here too and a championship, and it nearly killed me when you get like 7 weekends in a row. You got one weekend here and one weekend over there and one weekend over here, and it just went backwards and forwards. And I was actually, I think it actually cost me a championship in about 1990 because the amount of travelling I had to do. And mind you, like there's 14 hours from Sydney to LA, and then you've got another 5 hours to get over to the other side of the country. So that's when it becomes, you know, a real issue.
So if you're going to do it, you're going to do it properly, you reckon? You have to move over there and...
Well, you'd have to do what Marcus did, you know, and go over there, and because, especially now, because it's so competitive now. But going back then, it was the top of the game then too. So, and you know, the people were different, the cars were different, and technology was totally different.
Did you have any advice for Scotty when he made the big move to America? Was there any one thing that you learned from your time there that you told him?
Well, I just told him, I don't ever underestimate, you know, the range of people and the different talents that are over there, because it's just like anything, when you jump into something that they've been doing all their life, and you're new at the game, you want to listen and take in every single thing that you can possibly learn, because the guys are at the top of their game. Doesn't matter what it's in, they're really good.
Your current driver, Will Davison, his cousin James ran a special livery at Darlington this year celebrating your old car. Did you see that?
Yeah, they asked me about that, and I thought that was pretty cool, but I hope it didn't end up with a stripe on it, because I did.
The rookie?
Yeah, you get the old Darlington stripe, mate. It's a really strange racetrack. I think they've changed it a lot since going back where the fence used to come around and actually return back onto the racetrack a bit, which could sort of catch you out pretty easily if you weren't wary of it.
It's such a cool tale and an interesting chapter of your life, mate. It's been really cool to chat about it. Do you look back at those days and go, how cool that was to go and do that?
Yeah, it was. It certainly was an experience. I wouldn't say I was something that I enjoyed immensely. The road circuits I did, I thought that was pretty cool. But the oval tracks, not that they're daunting, it's just that I'm a great believer you've got to stay within your comfort zone, and because I'd done very little of it, and because it's speedway orientated, and I was never a speedway person here in Australia on dirt or anything like that, but it is a different discipline that really makes you sort of want to think in a different way, and you certainly learn about drafting and things like that. That's for sure.
Well, if nothing else, he helped launch the career of Ray Evernham, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, well, that was, you know, one good thing, because, you know, Ray was a terrific guy, and him and his wife that back then was Mary, and his brother. It was very much a family orientated thing, because of, you know, the whole family was there.
But of course, it wasn't just America. You also had the chance to race with your Sierra at Silverstone in the UK. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we went. It was a bit of an ego trip, because we thought that when after the Bathurst in '87, when they made us look pretty stupid here, and we hadn't had the car for very long at all, and they've had a bit of experience with it. And once we got our stuff together, we thought, well, we should go over there and just show these guys that they're not the best in the world. We'll give it a shot. And we went to Silverstone TT and put it on pole. And JB and I, one of my favourite photographs is lap one down the hangar straight when you see our car, and then two Eggenberger cars and an Andy Rouse car that in the distance made us feel pretty good.
So looking back, you have fonder memories of racing in England than you do America?
Oh, well, mainly because I knew what we were doing rather than sort of flying blind. But yeah, it was a great trip, and it's one that they still talk about today, even the people at Cosworth.
Dick, it's been really cool to catch up and turn back the clock a little bit to a great history lesson in your life, I reckon.
Well, it has been. Like, gee whiz, you know, talk about history, you know, as you know, it was 40 years ago, was their first Bathurst win yesterday. So that's a long time, certainly in this business anyway.
Still a few more chapters to write, mate.
Oh, one would only hope.
Thanks, Dick.
Cheers, buddy.